live from Grand Falls, Windsor, Newfoundland, Canada. Wherever you're watching from, let us know. We love to hear about all of that, and let us know if you're enjoying the show. Let's Get Writing is about the writing process, and it appeals to writers, to aspiring writers, publishers, readers, fans, anyone who loves the written word. This is a show for you, and we hope that we can bring you the stories behind the stories and that you'll enjoy our guests. And if you've missed shows, you can pick them up on YouTube, and they're under Catherine Taylor TV and also available on most podcast channels as Let's Get Writing. Now, on to my guest. My guest today has published her first novel with a second one following on the heels of that this summer. She describes herself as a novelist, a freelance journalist, a columnist, outdoor enthusiast, and aspiring amateur naturalist. It's quite a few things. Her first novel, Supermarket Baby, and actually I have a copy of it here. Losing my train of thought, this was the winner of the 2019 Percy James First Novel Award, and it was published by Flanker Press. And she also has a young adult novel called The Degrees of Barley Lick, and that is being published by Running the Goat Books and Broadsides, and they're in Torres Cove, Newfoundland. And she's currently working on her third novel, so she's a busy lady. That's going to be called Digital Detox, set in Battle Harbor, Labrador. Wow. I want you to meet her. I'm sure you want to meet her. I'm just going to bring her up in the screen and welcome Susan Flanagan to Let's Get Writing. And hopefully Susan comes up. There she is. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'd love to be there right in your studio with you, but it's a minor problem in today's world. So I'm happy to be with you virtually.
And that's where the show was often shot, in the studio. And then when things changed back almost a year ago, I decided to jump online and just go for it. And it's been a lot of learning, but it's been great because, Susan, I've been able to interview guests who aren't in the central Newfoundland area, such as yourself. You're out there in St. John's.
A lot of good things have come out of COVID, and that's one of them. People who are in more isolated areas are suddenly able to participate in things that they were cut off from before.
Exactly. Now guests on my show are often writing one book, but here you are, you've got two coming out and a third one in the works. How did this whole adventure in writing begin for you? Because it's obviously a huge part of your life.
I think it started way back when I was at Mary Queen of Peace in grade school. And in 1979, in honor of the International Year of the Child, it was the Library Association in Newfoundland and Labrador. They put out this little book called My Inside Self. And one of my teachers submitted a story I had written, and it got published in My Inside Self. And I think that always stayed with me. So seeing my name in print and just realizing the power of the word, and that I could create something in my head and it could be shared with thousands of other people. I swear that step led to me applying to journalism school much later.
You know, I've often discussed how important it is that we get the arts and get writing into schools for the younger generation to be reading and to be having the feel of the written word, because so often you hear nowadays that, oh, well, they can't write. They can't put a sentence together. I don't think it's entirely true. If you've been given the love of literature as a young person, I don't know, your education will just take over on its own. If you're reading and learning, you have 5 children. We haven't mentioned that yet. So
No.
You're more of an authority on this than me. What's your take on this? What do you think?
We certainly read a lot with all our children, but my mother also really encouraged reading. She's 92 and she grew up in Western Bay in Conception Bay North in Newfoundland. And books were so precious that if one came in, she was born in 1929, it will be shared throughout the community. And she remembers the day radio came to her house. So books were everything. That was your escape into the world. And so I tried to pass that on to our children. And my husband is of the same mind. So we spent a lot of time reading out loud. I remember when Harry Potter first came out, we called Hermione Hermione. And my husband was born in Northern England, and his mother came to visit, and she read them a chapter, and she said, Hermione. And we said, what? We thought it was Hermione for months as we read that first book.
Oh
Pretty
my
funny.
goodness. But you know, when I grew up in my home, there was a bookshelf in one room. It was this huge bookshelf, and it was filled with all kinds of books, classic literature, the books of Newfoundland, you name it. And I mean, I just spent days just in there looking at them and pulling out different anthologies in reading. So once you kind of get that into your heart, it's hard to ever let go of it. And I think it's one of the best gifts we can give to our
We had the Funk and Wagnalls encyclopedia set, and I actually not read my way, but certainly looked at every picture. And I remember looking at the insects and flipping the pages quickly. And sometimes one of the Funk and Wagnalls, you know, maybe M and N went missing, and we'd be on just the warpath trying to find it, because that's what we use for all our school reports and things.
Yeah.
But now I have floor to ceiling bookcases, and I have my books alphabetized, and sometimes I will read a book someone has loaned me, but if I enjoy the book, I have to possess it. So I'll go buy it and support the author and put it on my shelf, because I really love good books.
Yeah, they take up a lot of real estate, but great real estate to have in your house.
Yeah.
It honestly is. I'm the same way, and I share books back and forth with some of my friends. But you know, there's just certain books you just have to own. And that's all there
Yeah.
is to it. And speaking
Yeah.
of certain books which you might want to own, let's talk about. Let me bring this one up. And Supermarket Baby. I kind of have your face cut off a little bit there.
That's okay. I'll move over.
Jig a little to the right. So
Yes,
this is the
Supermarket
one
Baby.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about how this book came to be born.
Well, interestingly enough, the whole story originated from this postcard. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So Geist magazine had a contest, and they were asking people to write a 500-word story based upon the image on a postcard, any postcard you choose. And I chose this one. And this lady with her Ford LTD covered in trinkets, I wrote the story. I didn't win the contest, but Dolores, this woman, stayed in my mind, and she never left me, and she would wake me up at night, and she demanded to be let out and introduced to the world. So Supermarket Baby originated with Dolores, but as I started writing and she met Henry, it became Henry's story, which is interesting because you don't really have control over your characters. They do things that you don't anticipate, and you just have to go with them. Sometimes you can try and rein them in, but it's no good, because then you're changing the course of the story that some other power has in mind.
Well, I love to hear you say that, because that's been my experience too. And I think most authors will say that once you create these characters, they become very real. They have their personalities, and there are just things that they're just not going to do, no matter what you think. It's strange
Yeah.
how that happens, how the story kind of evolves around characters. And do your characters become real to you? Do they become like you know them? You don't like to see the book end?
They're definitely real. And this current book I'm working on, The Digital Detox, it's about these people who go to Battle Harbor, Labrador, which is an island off the coast, to get away from any digital media, but mainly social media. And at one point I was writing, and I got stuck with the plot. And I had done a workshop, and this particular last one was by Sharon Bala, but many people have reiterated the same point. If you get stuck in the plot, it means that you don't know your characters well enough. So you have to go back and look at their backstory and let them talk to you, because then at whatever stage in the plot you've arrived at, their decision will be obvious.
Very
So
interesting. I like that idea. I'd never thought of it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, having
Yeah.
said that, so
So you have to go back and really know them.
do you do character descriptions for your story? How do you approach writing a book? Tell us a little bit about that. Oh, we seem to be frozen up there a little bit. See if we can bring Susan back because I can't tell what she can tell about the writing of her books. Hello. Oh, there
I'm not.
you are.
Oh, good, good. You had frozen on me, and I wasn't sure what you were saying.
Oh, because you're frozen on me, so we'll blame it on the weather, although it is a
Yeah,
sunny
you're all
day.
good now, though.
We're all good. So what I had asked you is, do you, when you go about approaching writing a book, what is that process like? Do you do character descriptions first? Do you do an outline? How is writing a book for you?
The story will generally come to me, the vague outline of the story. And so in the case of Supermarket Baby, I knew that Henry Puddester was going to go to the supermarket. I knew that he went for eggs. I knew he was ill-equipped to deal with parenting because he came to it late in life. I knew that a simple task like going to the supermarket was almost too much for him. And at that point, I just thought, okay, he's going to do the supermarket switch, which I've done many times. I'm the main supermarket shopper in our house, and so many times I've taken someone else's cart by mistake. But I thought, what would be the most interesting or worst thing Henry could find in a supermarket cart that he's taken by mistake? And I thought, oh, what about if he took someone else's baby? And
Mm.
that's where his story started to blend in with Dolores's. So then I did have to go back and look at Henry's backstory and his backstory with Millie. I was asked why Millie, this intelligent, strong woman, would be with Henry, who is a
Mhm.
bit scatterbrained. But I went back and looked at how they met, and Millie just believed they were meant for each other. And opposites often attract, and people can be compatible even though they're very different.
Mm. And they are very different. There was even one point where I thought that maybe that they only have one child, which they had late in life. And I was almost wondering, I wonder if that's actually, their child. Or, you kind of, I don't know if you planted that in there or not, but I had that thought at one point.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. No, Dash is theirs.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
is. It came out, but it was when it was talking about the vasectomy and all this. And I think, God, it wouldn't be Frank, would it?
No, no. So Millie would never have time for Frank. She appreciates him as a neighbor, but she could never live with him. She'd have him killed. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But and for people who haven't yet read the book, as we talk about this, I'm sure you're wondering, huh? What? Who? It sounds like
So Frank, yes,
Carnation's.
Frank lives next door to Henry and Millie, and he brews beer in his shed. And Frank and Henry need each other. So
Yeah,
the
they
stresses
do.
in their lives are relieved just by voicing them to each other.
Yeah.
And they can just go back in the shed, sit back and have a beer on tap, and they let it all out. And even if one is really suffering, just by hearing the other one's problems, they feel relieved.
And I think there are a lot of sheds here in this province that are probably
Yeah.
serving the same role. Susan, I also noticed in the back of your book, you actually did a playlist for Dolores, which was kind of
Yeah.
fun. The songs and questions and topics for book club discussion. I don't always see that in books. I mean, I'm familiar that some books do include that. So what about how did that come to you? Why?
So music is very important to Dolores. So Dolores, at first glance, she's this fluffy character who drives her Ford LTD all across the country, and it's covered in 4,000 trinkets, and she sleeps at the Walmart parking lots. But deep down, Dolores has had a troubled past. Her name even means pain. And in the past, she has seen a therapist who has encouraged her to come up with a way to deal with stress. And what she does is she listens to music. She has recorded cassette tapes
Mm.
still in her Ford LTD from 1983. Every time a song comes on, she says the singer's name, the album's name, and the year it came out. and the name of the song as well. And it's a tic that she has. So if you first met her and there was music playing, she would say this and you say, oh my, that's very, very strange. So because that's such a strong part of her personality in the book, I decided to include her playlist at the end, which is very, 1970s classic rock.
Yeah, I have to have a look at that, King.
Yeah.
You're right. But
and then the book club questions, I've been a
Yeah.
member of a book club, the Red Hots, for, I guess it must be over 20 years now. And we always enjoy good, thoughtful questions, although sometimes we just sit around and gossip. But it's good to get a book with suggested questions in the back, because they may suggest something that you hadn't thought about, the author might. But sometimes people suggest things that you hadn't thought about, the author, I mean. So like you suggesting that maybe Dash wasn't Henry and Millie's child. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, and I think that that's a little breadcrumb from real life there too, about how the vasectomy failed.
Well, in
Am
my
I right
case,
with
yes.
those? You had 4 kids, and then later in life, another.
We had 4 kids in
Yeah.
5 years,
Yeah.
and then 9 years later, after the vasectomy, we had another child. So the medical wonder worked for 9 years, but then a tunnel grew around the scar tissue, and those determined little beasts pushed their way through. And
Now you have.
lo and behold, I got pregnant, and they called my husband Sure Shot Flanagan.
I love it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting in writing how certain experiences in your life in some ways can come through. And just because it's what you know and it makes sense and it is possible. But that was the reason why I thought that maybe he wasn't the father. And
But my husband is the father of our 5th child.
I'm not going
Which
there.
is good.
I'm
No.
definitely good to know.
He came out looking exactly like the other ones. I told him at the time, I said, if anyone were to be pregnant or deserve to be pregnant at this stage in our lives, it would be him, because he was doing his MBA in Vancouver. And every second weekend, he would go to the Delta in downtown Vancouver with other corporate MBA students who had left their families behind to spend the weekend at the hotel, whereas I was home shuffling 4 little children to the hockey rink or to dance. And I thought, if I did get pregnant, it was in a hockey rink.
The things we do, bringing up families and so on, but we make it work. And amongst all that, you've been doing so much writing. I want to talk about, I'm actually going to bring both of these up in the stream. I want to talk about your other book, which is a young adult novel, The Degrees of Barley, which is coming out this summer. Being a mom of so many children, you certainly had a lot of ability to write a book in this age group, I'm sure. But tell us a little bit about that. It was actually written quite some time ago.
Yes. So in 2004, we moved to British Columbia, and we were in Surrey, just east of Vancouver, in a town called Cloverdale, which is the setting of The Degrees of Barley novel. So at the time, my husband moved out for his job with CHE Helicopters, because they had moved their head office out there. But I had to leave my work in St. John's behind. So when I went out, I thought, I'm going to write a book. So I found a writers group right away. We met once a week. It kept me on track, because I'd need a new chapter each week. And over the course of those 3 years in British Columbia, I wrote a novel set in British Columbia. Just before we came home, that's when I got pregnant on that surprise child. And the physical copies of the book went into a file box down in the basement. The electronic copies were shoved away on an external hard drive. And it wasn't until November 2019 when I met Marnie Parsons at Running the Goat Books and Broadsides for the first time. God bless Marnie's cotton socks. She said, do you have anything young adult? I had just pitched Supermarket Baby at a Pitch the Publisher event put off by the Writers Alliance of Newfoundland and Labrador. So when Marnie said that, I said, why, yes, I do. I do have a young adult novel. And she asked to see it, and I had to take it out and brush it off and even choose which version I would send her, because I had 3 distinct versions. And we decided on the 3rd person past tense. And when I sent it to her, she said she would like to publish it, and we worked on a contract right away. So that's due out this August, and hopefully we'll launch it on International Geocaching Day on August 21st.
There you go. And so therefore, writers never lose track of things you've written in the past, because they can
No.
always be brought forward. Writing a book is not an immediate experience. Some people do write them quickly, but some people take time to do it. And even material you've written before is always relevant. You can update things. It was amazing.
I have one other that I wrote, and it was my first one. And looking back, I cringe because the plot is so bad and some of the writing's so bad, but the story premise really still intrigues me. And that one's it's set in 1996, at the time that the Hibernia gravity-based structure comes on stream, and it involves a fisherman here in Kitty Vitty and a guy who comes from England to work on the GBS.
Wow. Well, good to know that things never go stale. And it is, when you get a good idea, you kind of hang on to it. Susan, you mentioned about the pitch, and that's how a lot of this came about. You are quite involved in the Writers Alliance of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I say quite because you told me you are now, I think, in charge of the board or president of the board, or how. Tell us a little bit about that role, because I think it does keep you quite busy.
It does keep me busy, unexpectedly so, but I've been president of the board of the Writers Alliance of Newfoundland and Labrador since November, and I'm very honored and privileged to hold that title. We have an excellent board and an excellent executive director, and lots of others who keep writers in Newfoundland in the know and up to date, and offer all sorts of workshops and ask me anything. And we even have we have all sorts of contests. It's amazing. So I've been a member of WANL, the Writers Alliance of Newfoundland and Labrador, since before they started keeping records of their their members. So right now we have about 300 plus members. We'd love to see more, because I think a lot of people don't know the services that we offer. So we have a mentorship program. So you could apply, and you don't need to be a first-time novelist, but you could apply to mentor with someone more experienced in their writing career, and you would work with that person, and WANL pays the first chunk. Or that program, they pay the whole thing. There's a second program where you can have your manuscript evaluated, and WANL will pay up to the first $125 of that manuscript evaluation. So I've availed of that several times, and I can write thinking I've written a brilliant manuscript, and then I pass it over to someone with fresh eyes who's more distanced from it, and they will make the best observations. There's mistakes that I incorporate into my writing that I never imagined, but it all comes out very simply and easily as soon as another set of eyes see it. So WANL provides that. We have a master class coming up, a 4-hour master class on writing. Just in March alone, we have 10 major events. And to join WANL is $55 a year, and cheaper if you're a senior, a student, or unemployed. And the number of events that we put off, it's incredible.
Best investment someone can make to have that network in that family. And where we are in a province like this, where everybody's spread out and we're not always near and close to a center, to have access to this sort of support is totally amazing. So thank you so much to WANL for everything that you're doing for.
Yes, and if you sign on to their social media, Wendy in the office, she keeps everything so up to date, and even one event will be worth your year membership.
Well, I can see why you're
really incredible
board. You do a good job presenting the ideas. I have a few more photographs here that I want to share with people, and up in the stream, and you can tell us a little bit about what you've been up to. Please make it bueno. Here we go. Let's try this one. There we go. And we'll hide this one. And Here we go. So it looks like you're busy signing books. And is this,
Yeah.
yeah, are these
So
your bookshelves behind
the
you?
one with the right shirt or the red shirt, that was when things had just shut down with the pandemic the first time. So Marnie had sent me the contract and I had to sign it and send it back to her. So I signed it in front of my bookshelf. And it was a very exciting day. We celebrated. And you can see there's a book on the shelf alone, a dark book
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
next to a Crystal Skull vodka. That is the first version of Supermarket Baby that my second son Liam bound for me for Christmas in 2019. So he had the book bound. He had my other children write notes about sections of the book that were sort of based upon them, because it's obvious that some of it is based upon my own children. And I opened it and I burst into tears.
I imagine you did. That was a
So
pretty thoughtful
I
gift.
was very moved.
Yeah. And over here on the other one on the left, it's your Supermarket Baby book.
Yes. So I actually was able to go into Flanker's offices in person and sign that contract. So that was really fun. But that's in front of the same bookshelf with Supermarket Baby. So
Ah,
when I signed Supermarket Baby, I don't know if you can see up right here behind me on the
yeah.
shelf, there's a little round red man. Well, his name is Daluma. And I lived in Japan for 2 years. And Daluma is a person who meditated for 9 years and he wanted to attain enlightenment, which he did do. But in the course of his meditation, he lost his arms and legs. So he's sort of like a weeble, weebles wobble and they can't fall down. And he's representative of the country of Japan and their resilience. So in times of war or natural disaster, they always bounce back on their feet. So people in Japan have a Daluma and his eyes are just white. And when you have something that you really want to achieve, you color in one of Daluma's eyes, but you leave the other eye white until you achieve that. So when I turned 50, I decided this is it. I want to have one of my novels published, and I worked really hard at getting the manuscripts in front of publishers. And so when I went into Wannell's offices and signed, or I went in when they got the cases of books from the printer and started signing them, I took out Daluma and I colored in his other eye. They thought I was crazy, but it meant a lot to me to actually have one of my novel manuscripts printed and ready for sale. I'm
Mm.
very proud.
Yep. And you hit up on something there. I think a lot of authors feel the same way when they experience that. And I'm trying to just hide these and they don't want to hide. There we go. And we're back to us. Well, we're out of time on this interview. I could talk to you much longer, and I will, because we're going to come back very quickly and you're going to do some reading for us. But for this segment, we're going to sign off. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing your experiences and taking the time today to let us in a little on your journey as an author. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm honored to have been here. It was really fun, Catherine.
Well, we'll do it again because I think there were so many things. I'm just getting warmed up. Anyway.